So, how are we doing today? I said, how are we doing today? Too scared to talk to me, eh? Well, fine. Have fun sitting there for another week.
Buy me a thorn before you buy me a rose. Be covered in dirt before I'm covered in gold. He's trying it on, yeah, he's ticking me off.
Hey everyone, Sol here. I have only one rule here. If it's animated, I'll comment on it. And last year you might remember that I did a review of Hotel Transylvania in the first Sol Spooky Halloween, and surprise, surprise! I didn't like it. If you haven't seen that review, I'm gonna link it here because I think you should watch it before watching this review, because I don't want to have to repeat myself with all the points I made in that review. There's one thing I hate, it's wasting time. Speaking of that, let's just get right into the history of this bad boy and let's keep on rolling. Hotel Transylvania 2 is a CG animated movie produced by Sony Pictures Animation, directed by Genndy Tartakovsky, and is a direct sequel to 2012's Hotel Transylvania. The film was distributed in 2015 by Columbia Pictures to an impressive box office turnout, and another sequel is scheduled for release in 2018. Whew, talk about a complete tonal shift from last week, right? In terms of vampires. And hey, you know what? Actually, I just realized that this is the very first time I'm reviewing a direct sequel to something I've already reviewed before, movie-wise. Cool, another milestone achieved. So, let's not waste any more time. Let's just sink our teeth into Hotel Transylvania 2. So in the first movie, I mentioned that while I didn't find the plot particularly inspired, I did see potential in the overall scenario. Can the same be said of its sequel successor? Well, in this movie, all the characters you know and tolerate are back, only this time the story jumps ahead 7 years, and Mavis and Jonathan are married and have an adorable little kid called Dennis. Did I say he's adorable? Oh, hold on a second. But when it appears that Dennis isn't a vampire like his mom and Grandpa Count Dracula, Dracula makes an effort to bring out the vampiric side of Dennis, while Mavis and Jonathan visit California. Wow, this plot makes the first one look like Inception having ball-slappy sex with Memento and The Dark Knight. I mean, seriously, this concept is so stock I can make beef stew with it. I've got nothing else to say. Calling it uninspired is quite frankly not even scraping the surface of how utterly unimaginative the plot is, so let's just move along before I puke again. Like I said, all the characters returned from the first movie, like Count Dracula, Mavis, Jonathan, Frankenstein's monster, Wayne the werewolf, Griffin the invisible man, Murray the mummy, and, you know, everyone else too. The only new character worth talking about is Dennis, who is Mavis and Jonathan's cheerful little boy who may or may not be a vampire. I can't stand Dennis. Not just because he's a little kid, but because he basically becomes the center of the entire universe in the movie. I get that the movie's plot revolves around his vampiric discovery, but just like with Jonathan in the first movie, everyone just inexplicably loves Dennis. I guess it's because he's just so goddamn cute, right? Whoa, excuse me a second. In judging the rest of these characters as a whole, old ones and new, I guess they're alright. There isn't much change from the first movie, so it's hard to detach myself from my previous feelings on the matter. One big difference is Mavis stops being just a girl and instead becomes an overprotective parent, which wasn't funny or interesting when Dracula did it, but at least he had some semblance of a personality to back him up. Mavis, however, doesn't, and that's my cue to move on. Now then, in regards to the good things in this movie, I will say that the frenetic Tex Avery-esque energy is a holdover from the first movie that still manages to come out as impressive, despite being a little less prevalent than before. But just in general, the animation is quite great. But nowadays, that's such a standard thing to say for modern CG movies that I don't even know why I bother saying it anymore. Guess I'm just looking desperately for good things to say so the inexplicable fanbase this movie has doesn't come to my house and try to rip out my intestines with a salad fork. Well, too bad! I only have dinner forks. I know that constantly comparing this movie to its predecessor is tiring and not altogether appropriate, but trust me, this movie is so similar to the first one that I can't help but do nothing but draw a comparison. But you know what the sequel does that the first movie didn't? Pander. I mean, sure, the first movie had a somewhat pandering modern sensibility, but it was more downplayed. This movie is just reveling, rolling around in its own filth, with awkward, corny humor that even the crickets won't dignify. A rickety, insipid plot that can only truly engage the most dead-eyed of children. And cell phones! Just a whole lot of cell phones. Don't forget to buy a Sony Xperia phone and a Sony Vaio desktop computer, kids! Ugh, God. Where did I put my puke bucket? What is it about Adam Sandler productions and horrendous product placements? It's fucking shameful. Another thing I resent about this movie is that it really banks a lot on you enjoying that Dennis kid and his sickening cutesiness. I mean, he's nothing more than a glorified plot device and doesn't even come close to being an actual character beyond looking cute. But sorry mate, I am not falling for it. You're trying to please someone who just absolutely abhors nearly everything about children. Sure, it's technically my personal hang-up that makes me hate him, but when it's the only ace this movie has up its sleeve, it's destined to rot in the proverbial cinematic dumpster forevermore. Hotel Transylvania 2 actually manages to make this concept worse than the first movie, which I didn't think was a thing that could feasibly happen. Between shameless pandering, clumsy, stilted attempts at humor that managed to be even weirder than the first time around, a lazy, completely half-assed climax that can hardly be even called a climax, and just a general indolence that once again treats its viewing audience like complete morons, I can't even think of one reason to recommend this pitiful display of sheer assness that does nothing but kowtow to the lowest common denominator. It's certainly one undead nightmare that can't be put to rest fast enough. I give Hotel Transylvania 2. One eye out of 5. So, Hotel Transylvania 2. Is it watchable? Well, it's watchable in that the CG is very good, but nowadays that's such a commonplace thing to say that I feel like you could take your business elsewhere and get the same experience. Or probably better. Is it enjoyable? Well, if you enjoy being demeaned and pandered to while your heart shrivels up in embarrassment, then first you should see a therapist, but second, yeah, I'd say maybe you'd enjoy this movie, but as a whole, no, just not at all. Is it memorable? Well, considering that there's another sequel coming that's gonna be directed by the glorious Genndy Tartakovsky and a TV show, it seems like this concept isn't going anywhere, despite what I or anyone else says.
Why aren't you trying to escape? You can escape from those handcuffs any time. Why are you just sitting here letting yourself be tortured?
I'm waiting.
Waiting for what? Waiting for what? Fine. Keep waiting then. You'll die eventually.
Want to stay up to date with all the latest EyeofSol news? You can follow me on Twitter as well as on Facebook at twitter.com/EyeofSol299 and facebook.com/EyeofSol. I update them every day, so if you want to check out news on the show as well as updates, just follow the links here. Hey everybody, thanks for watching episode 2 in Sol's Spooky Halloween The Revenge, my review of Hotel Transylvania 2. I really appreciate it. If you like this episode, I would appreciate a like and a share, as well as a subscription to my channel because spooky smiles all around. If you want to check out the previous Sol Spooky Halloween episode, as well as the previous Sol episode, you can see the annotations playing on the video right now. Or if you want to check out my various social media sites, you can see my links to my Twitter page and my Facebook page there on the screen for you, as well as in the description. If you have an idea for an animated series or movie you want me to comment on, you can leave me a message in the YouTube comments on any one of my social media sites, or just let me know in any way you can think of to let me know what you want to see, and I will add it to my list. Okay? Thanks again for watching everybody, and I will see you next week for another rendition of Sol's Spooky Halloween The Revenge.
Wrap me a leg before you wrap me a lace. We break the rules like we're changing the game.